Today we'll look at every Football Manager 26 out of possession player role. The sweeper keeper. The sweeper keeper maintains a higher position in order to sweep up through balls and deal with long passes. The player also adjusts their position along with the line of the ball without straying too far out wide. This player uses aggressive movement to intercept long passes with optimal timing and angle. The key attributes for a sweeper keeper is rushing out, anticipation, and decision making. The line holding goalkeeper. Unlike the sweeper keeper, the line holding goalkeeper is focused on defending the box. This role works best with a low defensive line. The key attributes for a line holding goalkeeper is positioning and concentration. You can also look for goalkeepers that have good attributes for commanding their area. This is also very helpful. The pressing fullback. The pressing fullback would actively engage the opposition players higher up the pitch and try to win back possession. This player would help support the team's press. However, in the defensive third, the pressing fullback would act like a normal fullback, maintaining his position and trying to keep a solid shape with the defensive line. The key attributes for the pressing fullback is work rate, anticipation, and aggression. Holding fullback. The holding fullback would stay in his position and not venture too far forward even when the team is pressing higher up the pitch. This is to offer some defensive cover for the team when you're playing with a high press. The holding fullback will stay narrow and support the centre back, almost acting like a third centre back. The player takes time to mark the opposition before trying to engage and try to win the ball back. The key attributes for the holding fullback is the concentration, positioning, and marking. Stopping centre back. The stopping centre back would actively step out of the defensive line and try to engage the opposition and win the ball back. This player is more aggressive than the standard centre back and works best in the middle of a back three. The key attributes for a stopping centre back is aggression, tackling, and strength. Covering centre back. The covering centre back is a bit more cautious with his pressing and always holds the defensive line, waiting for the perfect moment to track the opposition and win the ball back. This player is more cautious and less exposed than the standard centre back, and he provides a backup when all the other defenders are going out to press. The key attributes for a covering centre back is anticipation, pace, and marking. Covering wide centre back. The covering wide centre back is going to adopt a more cautious approach, holding his line and waiting to react to the opposition attackers on the wings. Very similar to the covering centre back, the wide covering centre back is going to be focused on closing down the wide areas. Key attributes for a covering wide centre back is anticipation, pace, and marking. Stopping wide centre back. This is a more aggressive variant of the wide centre back that is going to actively try to win the ball back from the opposition in the wide areas. The stopping wide centre back steps out aggressively to press and intercept in the wide central areas, and you can find them pressing the attacking midfielder on the left or on the right hand side. Key attributes for the stopping wide centre back are aggression, tackling, and strength. The pressing wing back. The pressing wing back will aggressively try to press the opponent's widest player in their own half. In the defensive third, the player will still hold a higher position but will not actively press. Rather, the player would follow the normal team instructions that has been set. Key attributes for the pressing wing back is work rate, anticipation, and aggression. Holding wing back. The holding wing back would stay in position when the team is actively pressing higher up the pitch. This will allow the player to serve as a defensive cover in case of direct counter-attack. The holding wing back resembles a traditional fullback where you have a pressing option on the other side. They'll maintain a defensive line with the back four and be a bit more cautious when they engage the opposition and try to stop attacks. The key attributes for the holding wingback is concentration, positioning, and marking. Pressing defensive midfielder. The pressing defensive midfielder is actively going to step out of position and try to engage the opposition and win the ball back high up the pitch. However, in the defensive third where the team has not actively won possession, the player will act like a standard defensive midfielder. Key attributes for a pressing defensive midfielder is anticipation, work rate, and aggression. Dropping defensive midfielder. The dropping defensive midfielder will shift into the space between the centre backs when the team is in their own defensive third, normally acting as an additional centre back. This is very different from the halfback role, as the halfback is a creative player that tends to drop deep between the centre half to receive the ball from the goalkeeper and build up play. However, the dropping defensive midfielder is slotting into that position to act as a defensive protection. Key attributes for the dropping defensive midfielder is positioning, anticipation, and decision making. Screening defensive midfielder. The screening defensive midfielder is responsible for protecting the central defenders. this player is going to shuffle side by side to act as a cover for the centre backs. The player will hold his position and try to block off central passes and really look to get drawn out of position with a press. Key attributes for the screening defensive midfielder is concentration, positioning and marking. Wide covering defensive midfielder. The wide covering defensive midfielder will actively get drawn into wider areas to try and help out the fullbacks or wingers to defend the wide areas. This role works best with a wide outlet winger, as the wide covering defensive midfielder is going to help the wide outlet winger with the defensive responsibilities, leaving the outlet winger to be free to attack. Be careful, this role can leave gaps in the central areas if the player has been drawn too far wide. Key attributes for the wide covering defensive midfielder is work rate, anticipation and pace. Pressing central midfielder. The pressing central midfielder actively engages the opposition and tries to win the ball back high up the pitch. This player is usually the central midfielder that would join the striker in a lone striker system. If the opponent's player that is currently in possession of the ball is already under pressure, the pressing central midfielder will press the nearest person closest to him. Key attributes for the pressing central midfielder is anticipation, work rate and aggression. Screening central midfielder. The screening central midfielder would maintain his position and try not to get dragged out during a press. Instead, this player will try to cut off passing lane and also protect the central defenders if possible. The player can sometimes move into the half spaces, but they will not engage in a press. Key attributes for the screening central midfielder: concentration, positioning and marking. Wide covering central midfielder. The wide covering central midfielder will provide defensive support in the wide areas, trying to help out the wingers and the fullbacks to defend those wide threats. Key attributes for the wide covering central midfielder are work rate, anticipation and pace. Tracking wide midfielder. The tracking wide midfielder will help out defensively when the opposition are actively trying to attack. This player is responsible for covering the wide areas and tracking the opposition's fullback or even winger when they are actually on the attack. This role mainly applies for the defensive and the middle third. When they are in the attacking third, the tracking wide midfielder acts like a normal winger. Key attributes for the tracking wide midfielder are stamina, work rate and marking. Wide outlet midfielder. The wide outlet midfielder is asked to avoid tracking back defensively to help the team out in defense, but to stay forward and be an attacking option. Be careful, this player does not engage in that much defensive work. They conserve their energy for the attacking phase. Key attributes for the wide outlet midfielder: anticipation, off the ball and pace. Wide outlet winger. The wide outlet winger has a higher starting position than the wide outlet midfielder, but the player also is to avoid tracking back and helping the team out in defense, rather to stay forward and be an option in attack. It's best to pair these wide outlet roles with wide covering central roles. Key attributes for the wide outlet winger: off the ball, pace and anticipation. Tracking winger. The tracking winger is asked to help the team out defensively, closing down the opposition's fullback and even winger. This role applies in the defensive and the middle third. However, in the attacking phase, the tracking winger acts like a normal winger. Key attributes for the tracking winger are stamina, work rate and marking. Inside outlet winger. The inside outlet winger will stay higher up the pitch to act like an attacking option. However, the player will drift into the central areas to receive possession of the ball and then start the counter attack. Key attributes for the inside outlet winger is anticipation, off the ball and decision making. Central outlet attacking midfielder. The central outlet attacking midfielder would actively stay forward and not get involved in the defensive phase of the game. This player holds his position in the central areas, ready for a counter attack. In certain systems, they may still drop deeper, but they will not actively try to defend. Key attributes for the central outlet attacking midfielder are anticipation, off the ball and decision making. Splitting outlet attacking midfielder. This player is asked to avoid tracking back to help the team out defensively, however to stay forward in wide areas to act like a counter attacking outlet. The player maintains a higher position in preparation for counter attacks and drifts into channels to receive possession of the ball and continue the transition. Key attributes for the splitting outlet attacking midfielder are anticipation, off the ball and pace. Tracking attacking midfielder. The tracking attacking midfielder is asked to actively drop back and help the team out defensively. This player would adopt a safety first approach and drop into midfield to form a compact 3-man midfield to help the team defend in a solid shape. Key attributes for the tracking attacking midfielder are stamina, work rate and marking. Tracking center forward. The tracking centre forward is asked to help the team out defensively by tracking back and helping the team in the defensive third. The player will support the midfielders behind him by dropping back into a defensive position. Key attributes for the tracking centre forward are work rate, stamina and marking. Central outlet centre forward. The central outlet centre forward is actively going to stay higher up the pitch, maintaining an attacking position in preparation for a counter-attack. This player will maintain his central position and try to beat the offside trap and run ahead of the centre-back. Key attributes for a central outlet centre forward are anticipation of the ball and decision making. Splitting outlet centre forward. The splitting outlet centre forward would actively avoid tracking back, rather stay forward and try to be an option for the counter-attack. But this player would drift into the half spaces and into channels and try to even move into a wider position to start the counter-attack. Key attributes for a splitting outlet centre forward are anticipation of the ball and pace.